Okay, hello Chastity. Thanks for donating, and we are going to read this reading here. It's actually called Deleuze Spinoza. So I got the name wrong because I remembered it as Despinoza or something. Anyway, this is Gilles Deleuze lecture, transcripts on Spinoza's concept. Or maybe I'm not wrong. It's not Dispinoza, it's just Spinoza. Okay. Emily and Julian Deleuze. So I'm thinking that they've written this up or edited it or something. Anyway, because it's on someone else's concept, Spinoza. Anyway, this is hardcore. 28 pages. We're not going to be reading the whole thing. But now you know what it is, where to get it. You got the website link there and everything. And I just wanted to take you through just part of this. I have not read the whole thing myself, so let's see how far we get for now. I've got a few other things to do, like about 40 prize wheel videos. Far out. No, I appreciate it, guys. This is good. We need to keep me here, keep me working on the channel. All right, let's go. Oh, actually, I'll take out my retainer. Hold on. So I can speak without a lisp a bit more. Okay. So today we pause in our work on continuous variation to return temporarily for one session to the history of philosophy. On a very precise point, it's like a break at the request of some of you. Oh, okay. Just they're talking to someone, to their students or something, I guess. What is an idea and what is an effect in Spinoza? Idea and effect in Spinoza. Okay. At the request of some of you, we have the problem of time in Kant. They must be talking about Immanuel Kant. At the request of some of you, we also take a break to consider the problem of synthesis and the problem of time in Kant. Well, does that mean something, time in Kant? I'm not sure what that means. I'm thinking they're talking about Immanuel Kant, but I don't know. He was the guy that said you should do something because you can do it, and ethics stuff he talked about. For me, this produces a curious effect to returning to... Hold on, let me get to the place where we're actually reading this guy's work. Yeah, okay, let's go to the third paragraph here. It matters little whether you've read him or not, for I'm telling a story I began with some terminological cautions in Spinoza's principal book, which is called the Ethics, and which is written in Latin, which I definitely cannot read. One finds two words, Affectio and Affectus. Some translators, quite strangely, translate both in the same way. That would be probably organic portals. This is a disaster. They translate both terms, Affectio and Affectus, by affection. Yeah, that is a disaster. I call this a disaster because when a philosopher employs two words, it's because, in principle, he has reason to. You would think so. Especially when French easily gives us two words which correspond rigorously to Affectio and Affectus. That is affection for Affectio and affect for Affectus. Some translators translate Affectio as affection and Affectus as feeling, like emotions. See, again, call me Spinoza then, because I discern between feeling and emotion. Feeling are higher and emotions are lower. Anyway, I talked about that also in Organic Portal's Handbook. Here they say feeling a sentiment. Yeah, that's emotional. When I use the word feeling, I'm talking about informationally feeling something. You know, the telepathic pickup of the information of the field, you reading the field, that's feeling. Emotions are like, driven by these ego devils and stuff that I talk about on the channel, right? The 7 faces of the devil and all that, Binfeld's classification, so on. Anyway, let's continue. Which is better than... So yeah, I'm saying I have two words, and If I employ two words, it's because in principle I have reason to, like Spinoza. I like this person a little bit. Anyway, which is better than translating both by the same word, but I don't see the necessity of having recourse to the word feeling. Right. Since recourse. Huh. Yeah, I guess so. No, I agree with them. Since French offers the word affect, thus when I use the word affect, it refers to Spinoza's Affectus. And when I say the word affection, it refers to Affectio. Yeah, this gets really, really difficult to remember while you're reading. I had to keep going back up to that paragraph. This next paragraph's not much better either. No, I mean that mockingly, like stupidly, you know what I mean? These are fantastic paragraphs, but I mean like so complex, which is fantastic, but I was like mocking it. Anyway, first point, what is an idea? What must an idea be in order for us to comprehend even Spinoza's simplest propositions? On this point, Spinoza is not original. He's going to take the word idea in the sense in which everyone has taken it. What is called an idea in the sense of which everyone has always taken it in the history of philosophy is a mode of thought which represents something. A representational mode of thought. A representational mode of thought. For example, the idea of a triangle is the mode of thought which represents the triangle. Are you lost yet? For example, the idea of a triangle is the mode of thought which represents the triangle. Still, from the terminological point of view, it's quite useful to know that since the Middle Ages, this aspect of the idea has been termed its objective reality. This is where I was lost the first time. So by objective reality, I think I mean the actual object, the form, the thing itself, the triangle. But hold on, I can't remember, we need to keep reading. In texts from the 17th century and earlier, when you encounter the objective reality of the idea, this always means the idea envisioned as representation of something. Oh, okay, no, it's the opposite of what I just said. The idea, insofar as it represents something, is said to have an objective reality. Okay, yeah. It is the relation of the idea to the object that it represents. Thus we start from a quite simple thing. The idea is a mode of thought defined by its representational character. This already gives us a first point of departure for distinguishing idea and affectus. For distinguishing idea and affectus. Because we call affect any mode of thought which doesn't represent anything. So what does that mean? Take at random what anybody would call affect or feeling. A hope, for example, a pain, a love. This is not representational. There is an idea of the loved thing, to be sure. There is an idea of something hoped for, but hope as such, or love as such, represents nothing. Strictly nothing. So that to me reeks of fifth dimensional viewpoint, in case you're wondering, because that's why I'm reading it, right? You guys want my point of view on this. It's again that non-duality, but it's not even that. It's very hard to, that's not the only thing, aspect of the fifth dimensional nature. So here I mean that it's like in some sort of, so they're saying it represents nothing, and it's like there's no form attachment yet. There's an idea of the loved thing, to be sure. There's an idea of something hoped for, but hope as such, or love as such, represents nothing, strictly nothing. Every mode of thought, insofar as it is non-representational, will be termed affect. A volition, a will implies, in all rigor, that I will something, and what I will is an object of representation. What I will is given in an idea, but the fact of willing is not an idea. So what I will is given in an idea, but the fact of willing is not an idea. Yes, agreed. It is an effect because it is non-representational mode of thought. That works. It's not complicated. Okay, let's have a look again. But the fact of willing is not an idea. Yep, clearly. It is an effect because it is non-representational mode of thought. Okay, now, yeah, I'm in on it. I get it. Okay, it's non-representational. Yeah. Here, thereby immediately infers a primacy of the idea over the effect. Yes. And this is common to the whole 17th century. So we have not yet entered into what is specific to Spinoza. There is a primacy of the idea over the effect for the very simple reason that in order to love, it's necessary to have an idea. However confused it may be, however indeterminate it may be of what is loved. In order to will, it's necessary to have an idea, however confused or indeterminate it may be of what is willed. Even when one says, I don't know what I feel, there's a representation, confused though it may be, of the object. There is a confused idea, there is thus a primacy, which is chronological and logical at the same time, of the idea over the effect, which is to say a primacy of representational modes of thought over non-representational modes. It would be a completely disastrous reversal of meaning if the reader were to transform this logical primacy through reduction. That the effect presupposes the idea above all does not mean that it is reduced to the idea or to a combination of ideas. That the effect presupposes the idea above all does not mean that it is reduced to the idea or the combination of ideas. We must proceed from the following point, that idea and effect are two kinds of modes of thought which differ in nature, which are irreducible to one another but simply taken up in relation such that effect presupposes idea. However confused, yeah, okay, I get it. Good. Now a second, less superficial way of representing the idea-effect relation. You'll recall that we started for a very simple characteristic of idea. Hold on, let me see if I'm recording still. Okay, sorry guys, just want to check. I don't want to do this and then have to do it again. Don't worry, we'll straight back there. Where were we? Okay. In order to will essentially... okay. Now, a second, less superficial way of representing the idea-effect relation. You will recall that we started from a very simple characteristic of the idea. The idea is a thought insofar as it is representational, a mode of thought insofar as it is representational, and in this sense we will speak of the objective reality of an idea. Sorry, I moved the screen, so I'll just go back over that again. The idea is a thought insofar as... hold on, I'm going to zoom in a bit more. Sorry guys, just trying to make it better for your reading. The idea is a thought insofar as it is representational, a mode of thought insofar as it is representational. Did they just repeat the sentence? And in this sense, we will speak of the objective reality of an idea. Yet an idea not only has an objective reality, but, following the hallowed terminology, it also has a formal reality. So the idea has an objective reality, it also has a formal reality. What is the formal reality of the idea? Once we say that the objective reality is the reality of the idea, insofar as it represents something, the formal reality of the idea, shall we say, is, but then in one blow, it becomes much more complicated. Oh, they're saying the reality of the idea, shall we say, is. Like it exists, right? That's what they're saying there, right? Hyphenated, but then in one blow it becomes much more complicated and much more interesting. Hyphenated, the reality of the idea insofar as it is itself something. The objective reality of the idea of the triangle is the idea of the triangle insofar as it represents the triangle as a thing. So I was right the first time, or what? Fuck, this is confusing. But the idea of the triangle is itself something. Moreover, insofar as it is something, I can form an idea of this thing. I can always form an idea of the idea. I would say, therefore, that not only is every idea something, to say that every idea is the idea of something is to say that every idea has an objective reality. It represents something. But I would also say that the idea has a formal reality, since it is itself something insofar as it is an idea. What does this mean? The formal reality of the idea, we will not be able to continue very much further at this level. We're going to have to put this aside. It's necessary just to add that this formal reality of the idea will be what Spinoza very often terms a certain degree of reality or of perception that the idea has as such. As such, every idea has a... Anyway, sorry. As such, that's the type of writing I do that I used to get corrected in university for doing. As such, every idea has a certain degree of reality of perception. Of perfection, sorry. Every idea has a certain degree of reality of perfection. So Spinoza is saying, very often terms a certain degree of reality or of perfection. So every idea has a certain degree of reality or perfection. Undoubtedly, this degree of reality or perfection is connected to, I don't know why they're putting both those as the same thing. Almost sounds like they're saying this same reality or perfection, like they're the same thing. Anyway, that could be better written, I think. Anyway, hold on. I mean, I'm not perfect, I'm just saying. Where are we at now? I've lost myself. Okay. Undoubtedly, this degree of reality of perfection is connected to the object that it represents. But it is not to be confused with the object that is the formal reality of the idea. Right, so the objective reality is like the idea of the idea. The formal reality is like the actual object. So I'll say it again. The object is the formal reality of the idea. The thing made out of stuff. then they're calling it objective reality for, its hyperspatial value. The thing, the idea or the degree of reality of perfection it possesses in itself is its intrinsic character. Sorry, I'll read that again. It is not to be confused with the object, that is, the formal reality of the idea. The thing, the idea is, or the degree of reality of perfection it possesses in itself is its intrinsic character. My God. The objective reality of the idea, that is, the relation of the idea to the object it represents, it is its extrinsic character. The intrinsic, that's a viewpoint from the third dimension then. You're viewing it from below here. You see that, guys? Interesting. They're viewing from here. Not a down-dimensional view, they're looking up. Anyway, the objective reality of the idea, that is the relation of the idea to the object it represents, is its extrinsic character. Well, I guess that is a great way to say it, though. It's extrinsic to the object that you see in front of you, the thing. The extrinsic character and the intrinsic character may be fundamentally connected, but they are not the same thing. Definitely not. The idea of God and the idea of a frog have different objective realities. But, that is, they do not represent the same thing, God and the frog. But at the same time, they do not have the same intrinsic reality. They do not have the same formal reality. That is, one of them, you sense this quite well, has a degree of reality infinitely greater than the others. The idea of God has a formal reality, a degree of reality or intrinsic perfection infinitely greater than the idea of a frog, which is the idea of a finite thing. Whoa, this could be dangerous and lead to eugenics as well. If you understand that, you've understood almost everything. Yeah. There is thus a formal reality of the idea, which is to say the idea is something in itself. This formal reality is its intrinsic character and is the degree of reality of perfection that it envelops in itself. I told you it was going to be a doozy. It's a good reading. This is what I hope to write the Eschaton book a little bit, or the OP Matrix guide, kind of Organic Portal's Handbook 2, the bigger version. I wanted to really spell it out like this, because I didn't have time to do that in Organic Portal's Handbook, and it's a handbook, not a massive novel. Anyway, so there is thus a formal reality of the idea, which is to say the idea is something in itself. So that's, the thing, the object in front of us, this third dimensional object. This formal, that's how I'm taking it. This formal reality is its intrinsic character. See, I don't know if I'm thinking about this correctly. And is the degree of reality of perfection that it envelops in itself. This formal reality is its intrinsic character and is the degree of reality or perfection that it envelops in itself. God, I'm going to have to think about this stuff. Just now, when I defined the idea by its objective reality or its representational character, I opposed the idea immediately to the effect by saying that the effect is precisely a mode of thought which has no representational character. Mhm. Now I come to define the idea by the following. Objective reality, yeah, okay. Now I come to define the idea by the following. Every idea is something. Not only is it the idea of something, but it is something. Yeah, basically it's like how we know, our visions are something. That it's not, boogie woogie and unreal. That actually it has reality. That is to say, it has a degree of reality which is proper to it. Thus, at this second level, I must discover a fundamental difference between idea and effect. What happens concretely in life? Two things happen, and here. It's curious how Spinoza employs a geometrical method. You know that ethics represented in the form of propositions, demonstrations, etc. And yet at the same time, the more mathematical it is, the more extraordinarily concrete. Everything I'm saying and all these commentaries on the idea and the effect refers to books 2 and 3 of the Ethics of Spinoza. In books 2 and 3, he makes for us a kind of geometrical portrait of our life. Wow, I want to see that. It seems to me it's very convincing. This geometric portrait consists largely in telling us that our ideas succeed each other constantly. One idea chases another. One idea replaces another idea, for example, in an instant. A perception is a certain type of idea. We will see why shortly. Just now I had my head turned there. I saw that corner of the room. I turn, it's another idea. I walk down a street where I know people. I say hello, Pierre, and then I turn and say hello, Paul. Or else things change. I look at the sun, and the sun little by little disappears, and I find myself in the dark of night. It is thus a series of successions of coexistences of ideas, successions of ideas. But what also happens? Our everyday life is not made up solely of ideas, which succeed each other. Spinoza employs the term automaton. Automaton. Ho ho! We are, he says, spiritual automata. Wow. That is to say, it is less we who have the ideas than the ideas which are affirmed in us. Yeah, like Terence McKenna said, these are not our thoughts, these are these time waves impinging of the Gaian matrix. What also happens apart from this succession of ideas? See, organic portals are the opposite. They think, it's their idea. You know what I mean? Like, it's their ego idea. That's why there shouldn't be any copyrights in the world, really. Because, and you say, well, then everyone would just copy your work, and yeah, but then it always gets changed and watered down and is not the original. And if it gets upgraded, good for all of us. If not, then you're going to find the original author in their magnificence at some point. You know what I mean? That's why I'm against copyright generally. Hope you understood that. Let's see here. What do we got? Automaton. What also happens apart from the succession of ideas? There is something else. That is, something in me never ceases to vary. There is a regime of variation which is not the same thing as the succession of ideas themselves. There is a regime of variation which is not the same thing as the succession of ideas. Variations must serve us for what we want to do. The trouble is that he doesn't employ the word. What is this variation? I take up my example again. In the street I run into Pierre, for whom I feel hostility. I pass by and I say hello to Pierre, or perhaps I am afraid of him, and then I suddenly see Paul, who is very, very charming, and I say hello to Paul reassuredly and contentedly. Well, what is it? In part, succession of two ideas, the idea of Pierre and the idea of Paul. But there is something else. A variation also operates in me on this point. Spinoza's words are very precise, and I cite them. Variation of my force of existing, or another word he employs as a synonym, vis extendi, of my force of existing, vis existendi, the force of existing, or potentia agendi, the power, puissance, I've never heard that word, of acting, the power of acting, the force of existing. They're two different things. Anyway, and these variations are perpetual, or I think that's what she was saying, or he. It's a girl, I think, writing this, isn't it? Anyway, doesn't matter. I would say that for Spinoza there is a continuous variation, and this is what it means to exist, of the force of existing or of the power of acting. So we have the succession of ideas and the continuous variation of existing. Seems to be where we're up to. And then we have the idea and the effect, don't forget. How is this linked to my stupid example, which comes, however, from Spinoza? Hello, Pierre. Hello, Paul. When I see Pierre who displeases me, an idea, the idea of Pierre, is given to me. Pardon me. When I see Paul who pleases me, the idea of Paul is given to me. Each one of these ideas in relation to me has a certain degree of reality of perfection. I would say that the idea of Paul in relation to me has more intrinsic perfection than the idea of Pierre, since the idea of Paul contents me and the idea of Pierre upsets me. So you would say it has more intrinsic perfection. No. I'm tempted to say, what the fuck, right here. But let's read on. When the idea of Paul succeeds the idea of Pierre, it is agreeable to say that my force of existing or my power of acting is increased or improved. Okay. Interesting. When the idea of Paul succeeds the idea of Pierre, when it succeeds it, it is, it is agreeable to say that my force of existing or my power of acting is increased or improved. Yes, because then you're in the forward push in the creation and you're not backward thinking. Like you're thinking, why do I hate Pierre? If it was the other way around. But if Paul succeeds the idea of Pierre, yeah, I get it. All right. When, on the contrary, the situation, that's what I was just thinking. When the situation is reversed, when after having seen someone who made me joyful, I then see someone who makes me sad, I say that my power of acting is inhibited or obstructed. And isn't this organic portals, right? This is why I'm not much more creative. We get just blocked by these people. At this level, we don't even know anymore if we're still working within terminological conventions or if we are already moving into something much more concrete. Working with terminological conventions, what the hell? Terminological conventions seem pretty concrete to me. Oh no, I get what you mean now, yeah. Alright. I'm following. I would say that to the extent that ideas succeed each other, I would say that, sorry, I was just having my own thought, apologies. I would say that to the extent that ideas succeed each other in us, each one having its own degree of perfection, its degree of reality or intrinsic perfection, the one who has these ideas, in this case me, never stops passing from one degree of perfection to another. In other words, there is a continuous variation in the form of an increase diminution of power of acting, or the force of existing, of someone according to the ideas which he has. A form of increase of the power. In other words, there is a continuous variation in the form of an increased diminution of the power of acting, or the force of existing, of someone according to the ideas which she has. Okay, yeah. Feel how beauty shines through this difficult exercise. This representation of existence already isn't bad. It really is existence in the street. It's necessary to imagine Spinoza strolling about. And he truly lives existence as this kind of continuous variation. To the extent that an idea replaces another, I never cease to pass from one degree of perfection to another. However minuscule the difference, and this kind of melodic line of continuous variation will define Affectus in its correlation with ideas, at the same time in its difference in nature from ideas. We account for this difference in nature and this correlation. It's up to you to say whether it agrees with you or not. We have got an entirely more solid definition of Affectus. Affectus in Spinoza is variation. He is speaking through my mouth. He didn't say it this way because he died too young. Affectus is Spinoza. In Spinoza is variation. This person is suggesting continuous variation of the force of existing, insofar as this variation is determined by the idea one has. Insofar as this variation is determined by the ideas one has. Fuck, this is really good. Yeah, I never thought of it this way. This is really good. Did you guys just pick that up? I'm going to try and explain, so we're going to have to stop here and I'll explain for you. Continuous variation of the force of existing, insofar as the variation is determined by the ideas one has. So Affectus is variation. So like how she's saying, you know, really this is giving me the idea of continually moving up. Remember how I just recently said this in a video where when you tell me, oh, all is one, everything's oneness, that doesn't move me up. I've heard it before, I've considered it, I've meditated on it enough and so forth, that it's there, but it's no longer moving me up. So what they're saying here is really for that ability to keep moving up. Did you catch that, guys? It's exactly what we just read. Yeah, that's really good. I like it because I need this right now really badly, because I'm in a way where I'm focusing. It's not exactly the same as focusing on the positive though. That's not what they're saying. But that you'll get a positive effect from a certain type of succession of variation. And what I'm saying is you can do this upward with her example of Pierre and Paul, and the reversal would move you down in the force of acting or existing. Oh, this is really good. This is a big piece. Do you understand now? This whole reading will boil down to like a piece or two, and that these pieces are called pieces of the philosopher's stone. Do you understand this, everybody? That when we walk around in our lives as alchemical spirited humans amongst these organic portals who do not do this, we are picking up pieces of the stone, the philosopher's stone, and it's an idea in the sense of, now we've learned about that in this reading, we can understand what I mean. when I say that. It's not like the Philosopher's Stone is a physical object, I mean. Okay? Anyway, that was really good. That's an important milestone on the channel. So whoever's here right now, lucky you, so to speak, because this is a really big point for this channel. I'd encourage you to press the like button, not for me, but so other people can get to this point. Anyway, consequently, in a very important text, the end of the book 3, which bears the title General Definition of Affectus, Spinoza tells us, above all, do not believe that Affectus, as I conceive it, depends upon a comparison of ideas. He means that the idea indeed has to be primary in relation to the effect. The idea and the effect are two things which differ in nature. The effect is not reducible to an intellectual comparison of ideas. Indeed. Okay. Affect is constituted by the lived transition or lived passage from one degree of perfection to another. Insofar as, that's basically what I was just trying to say as well, this upward movement too. Think about that. Okay, let's read that again. Affect is constituted by the lived transition or lived passage from one degree of perfection to another, insofar as this passage is determined by ideas, but in itself it does not consist of an idea, but rather constitutes effect. When I pass the idea of Pierre to the idea of Paul, hold on, we're going to read that again. Insofar as this passage is determined by ideas, but in itself it does not consist of an idea. But I am pulling an idea out of it though, like we just talked about, but rather constitutes effect. Yeah, I agree. I get what he or she is saying. When I pass from the idea of Pierre to the idea of Paul, I say that my power of acting is increased. Yeah, that's what I was saying too. Yeah, this is interesting. This is not the power of now, but the power of idea. When I pass from the idea of Paul to the idea of Pierre, I say that my power of acting is diminished. Yeah, this is interesting. Which comes down to saying that when I see Pierre, I am affected with sadness. When I see Paul, I am affected with joy. And on this melodic line of continuous variation constituted by the effect, on this melodic line of continuous variation constituted by the effect, Spinoza will assign two poles, joy and sadness, which for him will be the fundamental passions. Sadness will be any passion whatsoever which involves a diminution of the power of acting. And joy will be any passion involving an increase in the power of acting. This conception will allow Spinoza to become aware, for example, of a quite fundamental moral and political problem, which will be his way of posing the political problem to himself. How does it happen that people who have power, in whatever domain, need to affect us in a sad way? The sad passions are necessary. Inspiring sad passions is necessary for the exercise of power. It sounds like Family of Dark. Spinoza says in Theological Political Treatise that this is a profound point of connection between the despot and the priest. And remember what I said about shaman being the highest form of priest. Anyway, this is a profound point of connection between the despot and the priest. They both need the sadness of their subjects. Yeah, you guys only donate when I'm sad. Here you understand well that he does not take sadness in a vague sense. He takes sadness in the rigorous sense he knew to give it. Sadness is the effect insofar as it involves the diminution of my power of acting. Yep. Diminution, I get it now. It's like the minusing, plus and minus in mathematics. When I said in my first attempt to see, that was the Gnostic ring of the word and how it fits into the sentence. I didn't know that word before. Probably seen it before, but I couldn't remember what the meaning was. When I said in my first attempt to differentiate idea and effect that the idea is the mode of thought which represents nothing, that the effect is the mode of thought which represents nothing, I said in technical terms that this is not only a simple nominal definition, nor, if you prefer, only an external or intrinsic one. Oh, I'm lost. I just got lost. I have to read it again. The idea is the mode of thought which represents nothing. That the idea is the mode of thought. They repeated themselves. That's why I got lost, I think, as well. That the idea is the mode of thought which represents nothing. I said in technical terms that this is not only a simple nominal definition, nor, if you prefer, only an... Should that say or, not nor? That's a typo. Or, if you prefer, only an external or... Yeah, I'm correct. That's meant to be or, not nor. Typo there, everyone. Now I know why I was so lost. They'd done a double sentence and a typo. Anyway. So let's just get the idea out of that. I said in technical terms that this is not only a simple nominal definition, or if you prefer, only an external or nor, if you prefer, or if you prefer, only an external or intrinsic one. Okay, I'm going to leave that for now. In the second attempt, when I say, on the other hand, that the idea is that which has in itself an intrinsic reality, and the effect is the continuous variation of passage from one degree of reality to another, or from one degree of perfection to another, we are no longer in the domain of so-called nominal definitions. Here we already acquire a real definition, that is, definition which, at the same time as it defines the thing, also shows the very possibility of this thing. What is important is that you see how, according to Spinoza, we are fabricated as such spiritual automata. Oh, I see it. As such spiritual automata within us, there is the whole time of ideas which succeed one another. In according with this succession of ideas, our power of acting or force of existing is increased or diminished in a continuous manner. Yeah, I like this. On a continuous line, and this is what we call Affectus. It's what we call existing. Affectus is thus the continuous variation of someone's force of existing. Affectus is the continuous variation of someone's force of existing. Insofar as this variation is determined by the idea that she has, but once again determined does not mean that the variation is reducible to the ideas that one has. Does not mean the variation reducible, since the idea that I have does not account for its consequence. That is, the fact that it increases my power of acting or, on the contrary, diminishes it in relation to the idea that I had at the time, and is not a question of comparison, it's a question of a kind of slide. a fall or rise in the power of acting, no problem, no question. So very reducible, since the idea does not account for its consequence. That is the fact that it increases. Okay. Determined does not mean the variation is reducible to the idea. Okay. For Spinoza, there will be three sorts of ideas. For the moment, we will no longer speak of Affectus, we'll no longer speak of Affectus, of effect, since in effect, the affect is determined by the ideas which one has. It's not reducible to the ideas one has. It is determined by the ideas one has. Thus, what is essential is to see which ideas are the ones which determine the effects. Always keep in mind the fact that the effect is not reducible to the ideas one has. It's absolutely irreducible. Yeah, I agree. See what they're saying. It's of another order. Yeah. The three kinds of ideas that Spinoza distinguishes are affectio, ideas. We'll see that affectio, as opposed to affectus, is a certain kind of idea. There would thus have been, in the first place, affectio ideas. Secondly, we arrive at ideas that Spinoza calls notions. And thirdly, for a small number of us, because it's very difficult, we come to have essence ideas. Before everything else, there are these three sorts of ideas. Ooh, I like this sentence for my personal journey, and like as a site creator of consciousness, that's a good one. I can integrate that. Rightio. Right, so I need to read that again. Totally get that. Three kind of ideas. Affectio ideas. We'll see that affectio as opposed to affectus in a certain kind of idea. Yes. There would thus have been, in the first place, affectio ideas. Secondly, we arrive at the ideas, notions, and thirdly, essence ideas. So what's the first one? Affectious or affection? Affection. What is an affection? That's what I was just thinking. What is an affection? I see your faces literally fall. Yeah, this is all rather amusing. At first sight, and to stick to the letter of Spinoza's text, this has nothing to do with an idea, but it has nothing to do with an effect either. Affectus was determined as the continuous variation of power of acting. Yes, okay. An affection is what? In a first determination, an affection is the following. So we had affectus was determined as the continuous variation of the power of acting. Now we're going to get into an affection, a state of body insofar as it is subject to the action of another body. That's a reasonable way to say it. Right, so affection, state of a body insofar as it is subject. So where they put body, I actually would put a third dimensional reality or the word reality. But this might confuse this reading, so it's a decent idea to just go with what they've written. It's a state of body insofar as it is subject to the action of another body, so a reality affecting another reality. You see this? What does this mean? I feel the sun on me, or else a ray of sunlight falls upon you, is an affection of your body. What is an affection of your body? Not the sun, but the action of the sun or the effect of the sun on you. In other words, an effect. So we have affect and then we have effect. So they're saying like emotional is effect. On the action that one body produces on another, once it's noted that Spinoza, on the basis of reasons from his physics, does not believe in action at a distance. So no spooky action. Action always implies a contact and is even a mixture of bodies. Affectio is a mixture of two bodies. One body which is said to act on another, and the other receives the trace of the first. Every mixture of bodies every mixture of bodies will be termed an affection. An affection. Spinoza refers from this, every mixture of bodies will be termed an affection. Spinoza infers from this that affectio, being defined as a mixture of bodies, indicates the nature of the modified body. The nature of the affectionate or affected body, the affection indicates the nature of the affected body much more than it does the nature of the affecting body. The nature of affectionate or affected body, the affection indicates the nature of the affected body much more than it does the nature of the affecting body. He analyzes his famous example, I see the sun as a flat disk situated at a distance of 300 feet. That's an affectio, or at very least the perception of an affectio. I told you it was a good reading. Alright, let's read this again. I see the sun as a flat disk situated at a distance of 300 feet. That's an affectio. At the very least, the perception of an affectio. It's clear that my perception of the sun indicates much more fully the constitution of my body, the way in which my body is constituted, than it does the way in which the sun is constituted. I perceive the sun in this fashion by virtue of the state of my visual perceptions. A fly will perceive the sun in another fashion. Okay. In order to preserve the rigor of his terminology, Spinoza will say that an affectio indicates the nature of the modified body rather than the nature of the modifying body. And it envelops the nature of the modifying body. Yeah. I would say that the first sort of ideas for Spinoza is very mode of thought, which trace of another body on my body will be termed an idea of affection. It's in this sense that one could say that it is an affection idea, the first type of ideas. And this first type of ideas, this is a third dimensional view. See, they're looking from here up. And this first type of ideas answers to what Spinoza terms. That's why they had essence last. Essence idea comes last. So they're talking about, you're going within, you get to the essence idea, but you start with the affecting idea, the affection, affectio, from the body third dimensional perspective. Didn't I just, put a light on this? And that's why people like to donate me, and you guys can donate to me as well. And, I do these readings as a playlist in case you're listening along. And if you want me to read a specific reading, you just go ahead and contact me or comment under a video, say, can you read this video? Can you read this reading? I'm going to donate. And we'll sort it out. Because some readings are huge, right? So I'm not going to do hundreds of pages for $20. But yeah, we come to an agreement. Anyway, let's get back into this just quickly. I'm about to go eat. Where are we up to here? I would say that the first sort of ideas for Spinoza is every mode of thought which represents an affection of the body, which is to say the mixture of the body with another body or the trace of another body on my body will be termed an idea of affection. It's the same sense that one could say that it is an affection idea, the first type of ideas. And this first type of ideas answers to what Spinoza terms the first kind of knowledge. Connaissance, like connotation, or what? Connaissance, the lowest. Oh, well, good, he knew. He said that's the lowest, but we have them first. All right, I'm all good with all this now. Why is it the lowest? Well, I understand, but let's see what they're going to say. This will be another understanding. Why is it the lowest? It's obvious that it's the lowest because these ideas of affection, connaissant. It's like connotation, isn't it? Why is it the lowest? It's obvious that it's the lowest because affection or affectio ideas, because these ideas of affection know things only by their effects. Yes, no etiology or causation, an essence idea. Yeah, okay. I feel the affection of the sun on me, the trace of the sun on me. It's the effect. Oh, I'm going to be talking about this forever. And the relation between these two bodies such that the one produces a particular effect on the other rather than something else. Of these things I know says absolutely nothing. Let's take another example. The sun melts wax. The sun melts wax and hardens clay. These points are not nothing. They're ideas of affectio. I see the affection of the clay and I have an idea of these affections. I perceive effects. By virtue of what corporeal constitution does the clay harden under the sun's action? By virtue of what corporeal constitution does the clay harden under the sun's action? As long as I remain in the perception of affection, I know nothing of it. That's organic portal state. One could say that the affection ideas are representations of effects. One could say that affection ideas are representations of effects without their causes, and is precisely these that Spinoza calls inadequate ideas. Oh good, I like Spinoza after all. I like him. This is all just perfect for this channel, right? Inadequate organic portal ideas. No etiology. These are ideas of mixture, man. Every organic portal in the world needs to understand this, right? These are ideas of mixture, separated from the causes of the mixture. Yeah, indeed. And in effect, the fact that at the level of affection ideas, we have only inadequate and confused ideas like science and its meaningless conundrums, and that's the best it can get to. And confused ideas is well understood for what are affection ideas in the order of life. And doubtless, alas, many among us who have not done enough philosophy live only like that. Organic portals. Only once, Spinoza employs a Latin word which is quite strange, but very important. Occursus. Literally, this is the encounter. To the extent that I have affection ideas, I live chance encounters. I walk in the street, I see Pierre, who does not please me. It's the function of the constitution of his body and his soul, and the constitution of my body and my soul, someone who displeases me, body and soul. What does this mean? I would like to make you understand why Spinoza has had such a strong reputation for materialism, even though he never ceases to speak of the mind and the soul. A reputation for atheism, even though he never ceases to speak of God. Interesting. It's quite curious. One sees quite well why people have said that this is purely materialist. When I say this one does not please me, that means literally that the effect of his body on mine, the effect of his soul on mine, affects me disagreeably. It is the mixture of bodies of mixture of souls. There is a noxious mixture or a good mixture as much at the level of the body as at the level of the soul. Don't hang around organic portals. It's exactly like this. I don't like cheese. What does that mean? Sorry. It's exactly like this. I don't like cheese. What does that mean? I don't like cheese. That means that it mixes with my body in a manner by which I modify it disagreeably. I cannot mean anything else. Thus, there isn't any reason to make up differences between spiritual sympathies and bodily relations. In I don't like cheese, there is also an affair of the soul. But in Pierre or Paul does not please me, there is also an affair of the body. All this tantamount to the same thing. To put it simply, why is this a confused idea, this affection idea, this mixture? It is inevitably confused and inadequate, since I don't know absolutely. At this level, by virtue of what and how the body of the soul of Pierre is constituted. Yeah. In what way it does not agree with mine, or in what way his body does not agree with mine. I can merely say that it does not agree with me, but by virtue of what constitution of the two bodies, of the affecting body and the affected body, of the body which acts and the body which is subjected, I can at this level know nothing. As Spinoza says, these are consequences separated from their premises, or if you prefer, it's a knowledge connaissance of effects independent of the knowledge of cause. That's what I said before, etiology. Thus they are chance encounters. That's not a chance encounter though. Anyway, whatever. But what is body? I'm not going to develop that. That may be the object of a special course. The theory of what a body or even a soul is what Benjamin Cowdenberg on Philosopher's Stone talks about, which comes down to the same thing, is found in Book 2 of the Ethics. So interesting. For Spinoza, the individuality of a body is defined by the following. It's when a certain composite or complex relation, I insist on that point, quite composite, very complex. It's when a certain composite or complex relation of movement and rest is preserved through all changes which affect the parts of the body. Okay, so Spinoza, he says the individuality of a body is defined by when a certain composite or complex relation of movement and rest is preserved through all the changes which affect the parts of the body. Preserved through all the changes which affect the parts of the body. That's a good way. Okay. I've always been looking for that definition. It's the permanence, of a relation of movement and rest through all the changes which affect all the parts. Yes, okay. To infinity. So you can take that to infinity of the body under consideration. And then we get the idea of God, obviously manifests in this as a larger body, of which we would be body parts, or parts of that body. So it's the permanence of a relation of movement and rest through all the changes which affect all the parts taken to infinity of the body under consideration. You understand that a body is necessarily composite to infinity. My eye, for example, my eye and the relative constancy of my eye are defined by a certain relation of movement and rest through all the modifications of the diverse parts of my eye. But my eye itself, which already has an infinity of parts, is one part among the parts of my body. The eye in its turn is a part of the face, and the face in its turn is part of the body, etc. Thus you have all sorts of relations which will be combined with one another to form an individuality of such and such degree. But at each one of these levels or degrees, individuality will be defined by a certain relation composed of movement and rest. What can happen? I want to go back up here again. So a body is a certain composite relation of movement and rest which is preserved through all the changes which affect the parts as a permanence. That's how I need to really make that as a note. That's the way I would write it. Anyway. Okay. Alright, what can happen? This is only 6 pages. What can happen if my body is made this way? A certain relation of movement and rest which subsumes an infinity of parts. Two things can happen. I eat something that I like, or else another example, I eat something and collapse, poisoned. Literally speaking, in one case I had a good encounter and in the other I had a bad one. All this is in the category of accursus. When I have a bad encounter, this means that the body which is mixed with mine destroys my constituent relation, or tends to destroy one of my subordinate relations. For example, I eat something and get a stomach ache which does not kill me. This has destroyed or inhibited, compromised one of my sub-relations, one of the relations that compose me. Then I eat something and die. This has decomposed my composite relation, It has decomposed the complex relation which defined my individuality. It has simply destroyed one of my subordinate relations, which composes one of my sub-individualities. It has destroyed the characteristic relation of my body, and the opposite happens when I eat something that agrees with me. And everybody's different, so maybe we can't all eat the same food. In reference to vegans pushing it on everyone. Like a little too neurotically, you know what I mean? Like not being friends with you because the way you eat and stuff. Like, to an extent, yeah, but, you know, some of them take it a bit extreme. Anyway, Spinoza asks, what is evil? We find this in his correspondence. In the letters he sent to a young Dutchman who wasn't as evil as can be. That's funny. Spinoza was just out there just fucking people up. The Dutchman didn't like Spinoza and attacked him constantly, demanding of him, tell me what you think evil is. You know that at the time letters were very important and philosophers sent many of them. Spinoza, who is very, very good-natured, believes at first that this is a young man who wants to be taught, and little by little he comes to understand that this is not the case. It's going to be an organic portal. At all, the Dutchman wants his skin. From letter to letter, the good Christian Bleeberg's anger swells, and he ends by saying to Spinoza, but you are the devil. Spinoza says that evil is not difficult. Evil is a bad encounter, encountering a body which mixes badly with your own. That's an interesting definition. Mixing badly means mixing in conditions such that one of your subordinate or constituent relations is either threatened, compromised, or even destroyed. That's another perspective on evil. It's a good one. More and more gay, wanting to show that he is right, Spinoza analyzes the example of Adam in his own way. In the conditions in which we live, we seem absolutely condemned to have only one sort of idea, affection ideas. By means of what miracle could one move away from these actions of bodies that do not wait for us in order to exist? How could one rise to a knowledge of causes? For the moment we can see clearly that all that is given to us is ideas of affection, ideas of mixture, in system, I call this in here, in matrix, in lattice, For the moment we see clearly that since birth we have condemned to chance encounters, so things aren't going well. What does this imply? It already implies, look, this place here, down here, this matrix, it wants chance encounters to create the disharmony and so forth. This actually keeps a certain, you could call it low vibration, and is part of a sieve of vibratory assortment, which is part of this process of this place, just as it existing. And, they want that, because that pulls energy sideways. And that is, my friends, this idea that I keep talking about over the years called the surface virus, which Rise-a-Fi from Richard Wigley from Goldring, Game of Enlightenment and Abundance, said in this way there has been a cross-current formed to the forward flow of consciousness. Anyway, alright, here we go, let's keep going. This is not only anti-Cartesianism, but also anti-Christianity. So actually at this point I'm going to stop the video, I'm going to go eat something, and we're going to come back to this, and I'm going to replace your donations, Peter, because I know you're going to be okay with it, because you always send me stuff out of the Bible, and that just hit me there. It says here anti-Christianity. I'm not saying you're a Christian, but you always send me really good quotes from the Bible to do with organic portals. So instead of doing one of your prize wheel wins, we're going to keep reading this. I think you guys would prefer that. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I bet you're going to prefer me to keep reading this. So we're going to move into like Peter's, donations that he's given me now. That's the energy we're going to continue with. All right. So thanks, Chastity Sapay.